Here's a look at a recap of your markets on this Monday, the 29th day of September. Before we take a look at the markets, we'll take a look at this week's crop progress report. For the week ending September 29th, 4.5 days suitable for field work throughout the state. Topsoil moisture was rated 9% very short, 43% short, 46% adequate, and 2% surplus. Subsoil moisture currently rated at 14% very short, 40% short, 46% adequate, and 0% surplus. Corn dented is now at 98%. That compares to the 5-year average of 99%. Corn matures at 93%, which is a bit ahead of the 5-year average of 84% at this time. Corn harvest has moved up to 40% complete. That's ahead of the 5-year average of 34%. Corn condition rated at 1% very poor, 4% poor, 18% fair, 62% good, and 15% excellent. Looking at the soybeans, currently 68% of the crop is now dropping leaves, ahead of the 5-year average of 57%. Soybean harvest is at 11% complete. That's slightly ahead of the 5-year average of 7%. Soybean condition currently rated at 1% very poor, 9% poor, 30% fair, 54% good, and 6% excellent. Pasture conditions in the state currently rated at 5% very poor, 27% poor, 36% fair, 29% good, and 3% excellent. Monday, cattle auction day at the Joplin Regional Stockyards. They're expecting to have about 8,500 head today. Not quite done there yet, but they're getting awful close. Of course, they started very early this morning compared to last week. The steers are uneven from 10 lower to 5 higher. Feeder heifers selling uneven from 5 lower to 5 higher. The feeder steers, medium and large ones, 4 to 500 pounds at 430 to 490. 5 to 6 weights at 392 to 440. 6 to 7 weights at 375 to 437. 7 to 8 weight steers at 364 to 411. 8 to 9 weights at 344 to 365. 900 to 1,000 pound steers from 326 to 344. Feeder heifers weighing 4 to 500 pounds, 385 to 425. 5 to 6 weights at 366 to 390. 6 to 7 weights at 340 to 380. 7 to 8 weight heifers at 330 to 370. 8 to 9 weights selling from 320 to 327. Box beef cutout values, choice closed 75 cents lower at $370.68. Select was down $3.55 for the day, closing at $348.89. Those values based on 117 loads of cuts, trimmings, and grinds. The choice select spread at $21.79. When all was said and done last week, negotiated feedlot trade totaled 56,622 head. The weighted average price on the live sales, $233.13. That was down $4.38 from last week. Dress sales at $364.89, down $6.06 from last week. So far this week, less than 100 heads scattered around, not really enough to test or establish any kind of a market yet this week. Taking a look at the closing futures markets on the Mercantile Exchange, live cattle for October, 231.32, down 47. December was down 47 at 233.82, and February down 27 at 236.22. Feeder cattle for October, 80 cents lower for the day, closing at 356.20. November down 60 cents at 353.87. January 47 lower, 347.35. Lean hogs for October down 35, 101.15. December closed 70 lower at 90.35, and February 27 lower at 91.90. Turning our attention to the grain markets at the elevators around the state today, corn was steady to 2 cents lower, beans 3 to 6 lower, wheat was steady to 4 higher. Corn bids at the elevators in St. Louis, 419 to 420, Kansas City at 391. Soybean bids in St. Louis, 980 to 983, Kansas City at 925, and wheat in St. Louis, 459 to 474. On the Board of Trade, corn contracts, December down a half cent, 421.5. March at 438.5 down a quarter, and May 447 3/4 down a quarter. Soybeans for November 3 1/4 lower, 10.10.5. January down 3 1/4, 10.29 3/4. March down 3 1/2 at 10.45.5. Wheat contracts December down 1/4 cent, 5.19.5. March at 5.37 3/4 down a half penny, and May at 5.49 3/4 down a half penny. Soybean meal for October down 70 cents a ton at 268.10. The rest of the contracts all higher today. Soybean oil for October down 49 cents a hundredweight at 49.11. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for Monday. This is Tony Hancock.